Chapter 16, Text 20. So before we go into text 20, we will recap from text 19. Krishna is saying, those who are envious and mischievous, who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into the ocean of material existence, into various demoniac species of life. Before this was bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the body of others, and blaspheme against the real religion. So Krishna says that those are lowest among men, envious, mischievous, lowest among men. I perpetually cast them into the ocean of material existence. So if one is cast into the more material existence, that means one has these tendencies of being envious of Krishna, right? So it says, dvishataha, dvisha, right? Envious of Krishna. Samsareshu, into the ocean of material existence. Naradhama, lowest among mankind. So Nara, as in humans, Nara Adhama. Adham means lowest, right? So lowest among mankind. Okay, so there are 8.4 million species of life, right? Or 84 lakh species of life. There are 400,000 or 4 lakh species of human beings. In this world, you can see, coming to 620, I'm sure. In this world, you can see that there are different kinds of humans, like the Chinese, the Caucasians, the Indians, Africans, right? Different kinds. If you go to the Himalayas, you might see Bigfoot, you might see some species that we don't even know exist, or they are more legends, but they do exist. Now, if you go to the lower planetary systems, you'll find yakshas and species like that, yavanas, daityas. In the upper planetary system, there are the demigods, devatas and whatnot. So like that, there are various kinds within the human species who have different kinds of form, different kinds of powers. Gandharvas, they can sing very well, they can dance very well, they're very good looking, right? Kinnaras, this, that, Kubera has, the yakshas taking care of the treasures and whatnot. So there are different kinds of human species. There are different kinds of plant species. Jalaja, Navalakshani. There are aquatic species of 9 lakhs, Navalakshani, Jalaja, those who are born in water. There are amphibians. There are Sthavara, Lakshavimshati. There are different, stagnant beings. That means trees and other beings that don't move, right? So this Vedic definition of species might not connect with what we know from modern biology. Having said that, there's a Vedic definition, and it takes into account not only planet Earth, but the entire universe and different species within this universe. So Krishna is saying that there are certain species who are demoniac in nature, and if you're born in those species, it is really bad karma that you're born in those species. That means the species that are in the hellish planets, right? It's really bad karma if you're born in some of those species. So those who are mischievous, envious, have the negative qualities are born into the negative species. That is what's been spoken about. And we do good things, we do nice varnashram system and whatnot. And we are born in the positive species like demigods, where you can live almost forever, 311 trillion years lifespan. You have beautiful, sense gratification. The Menakas and Urvashis and, those kinds of beautiful ladies are there for entertainment. And there is a somras, alcohol, not alcohol, but intoxicating beverages. and one can enjoy sex life, one can enjoy music, one can enjoy all kinds of opulence, right? So that's called higher species. But Krishna conscious person doesn't aspire for any of those species because they're material. We aspire for going back home, back to Godhead, where we are in our spiritual form, in our soul form, right? So, moving on to today's verse, 16:20. Asuran yonim apanna mudha janami janmani mam aprapyavya konteya tato yanti adhamam gatim. Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. I'll repeat. Attaining repeated birth among the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons can never approach me. Gradually, they sink down to the most abominable type of existence. Purport. It is known that God is all merciful. But here we find that God is never merciful to the demoniac. It is clearly stated that the demoniac people, life after life, are put into the womb of similar demons and not achieving the mercy of the Supreme Lord. They go down and down so that at last they achieve bodies like those of cats and dogs and hogs. It is clearly stated that such demons have practically no chance of receiving the mercy of God at any stage of later life. In the Vedas also it is stated that such persons gradually sink to become dogs and hogs. It may be then argued in this connection that God should not be advertised as all merciful if he is not merciful to such demons. In the answer to this question, it is Vedanta Sutra, we find that the Supreme Lord has no hatred for anyone. The placing of the asuras, the demons, in the lowest status of life is simply another feature of his mercy. Sometimes the asuras are killed by the Supreme Lord, but the killing is also good for them. For in the Vedic literature, we find that anyone who is killed by the Supreme Lord becomes liberated. There are instances in history of many asuras, Ravana, Kamsa, Hiranyakashipu, to whom the Lord appeared in various incarnations just to kill them. Therefore, God's mercy is shown to the asuras if they're fortunate enough to be killed by him. I'll share a pastime of Lord Ramachandra's father-in-law, Sita Devi's father. Anybody know Sita Devi's father's name?
Janak
Maharaj. So Janak Maharaj, when he left his body, before going back to Godhead, he decided to go to the hellish planets because he's like, oh, people are suffering in the hellish planets. Let me go, take a look at them, how they're doing. And you could hear people are screaming and suffering, and there's all kinds of terrible noises in the hellish planets. So Janak Maharaj's presence, invoked Yamraj to come immediately. And Yamraj came and said, my dear, Janak Maharaj, we are so fortunate that a pure devotee like yourself have visited hellish planet. What can we do for you? He said, oh, I have just come here because people are suffering. And by my presence, they feel satiated. They feel peace. The suffering has stopped. So Yamraj is also a pure devotee. He's a Mahajan. So he told Janak Maharaj, by your presence, certainly these unfortunate, beings who are suffering for their karma are certainly, benefited, and their suffering has paused temporarily. But why don't you chant the names of the Lord, by which they can permanently be relieved from the hellish condition of life? And Janak Maharaj immediately started chanting Lord Ram's name. And by doing so, whoever heard the holy name of Lord Ram from the mouth of a pure devotee like Janak Maharaj, were getting benefited, and hopefully they would, get liberated. So just to, I took a little detour to give a little perspective that yes, there are these hellish planets, there are these situations, these species, but Krishna's mercy is unlimited, right? Even why are they there? Because they have done something very abominable. I was thinking when the Nirbhaya rape case happened, such horrible way they destroyed that woman's body. All of you know it. I don't have to reiterate it. At that time, I was in Chicago when I heard this. And I couldn't believe my ears that people could be so heinous. They could be so bad. Think about Aurangzeb. More than 42 lakh Hindus were killed because of this one person. What kind of body he must be in, right? He must be one of those cockroaches that people step upon. And born millions of times as cockroach, as I don't know, bacteria, I don't know what species, and then obviously hellish planet. What kind of pain and suffering he must be going through. So those kinds of activities leads to that kind of species. Still, Krishna is merciful because eventually there's evolution. There's evolution of consciousness, right? Not the evolution the way Charles Darwin talks about, but the evolution of consciousness where after the sufferings, after all that, a cockroach does rise to a bird, does rise to a chimpanzee, does rise to a human form. So eventually one is given that human form where one is able to eventually have the opportunity to ask questions, find the revealed scriptures, find the keys to go back home, back to Godhead, right? Chant Hare Krishna and go back home, back to Godhead. We don't know where we were, what kind of species we have been born in. Given the time frame, we must have gone to hellish planets. We must have gone to heavenly planets. We must have been in human form in all the 8.4 million species of life. And now we have this human form of life where there is this small window of 60, 70, 80 years, whatever long we live in Kali Yuga. And in that small period of time, it's like a flash, right? Within that time, we have been given this highest key, right? To the not just Vaikuntha, but Golok Vrindavan, Krishna's bedroom, right? That's the key we have been given so that we can perfect ourselves and enter into the rasa dance. We can dance with Krishna, we can play with Krishna, we can serve him, we can please him, we can be one of his associates in his abode where there is no time, there is no hunger, there is no pain, there is no suffering, no stress. So that is the gift we have been given. So Krishna is saying that such abominable personalities, those species, they don't get Krishna's mercy, but Krishna is merciful because they do eventually evolve after many lifetimes. They are not no more in those species, and then they come to the human form, which is the only form where you get access to doing devotional activities, and you can either choose to go down or go up or go back home, back to Godhead, right? Okay. Any questions on this?
Prabhuji, I have a question.
Yes.
So, since we don't remember our past sufferings in, let's say, hellish planets because of Maya, how does that has impact over like we choose to take better paths? Like, does it change our samskaras, or like how does that suffering relate to our next life?
No, it's not nothing like that. You do bad karma, you suffer your bad karma, you move on to the next life. So until human form, there is no karma, right? You're only expending karma. If you're a demigod, you're expending good karma. If you're a cat or a dog, you're expending bad karma, right? If you're in hell, you're expending bad karma. So point is, you don't accrue karma in any other life except human form of life. So now remembering past lives makes you go mad, right? People who remember their past lives, they have identity crisis, right? I'm in a 5-year-old body and I'm looking at my picture on the wall. I see my daughter who's like 20 years or 30 years older than me. So it's like, wow, what's happening, right? The brain has struggled kind of putting it all together. So Krishna mercifully has given us forgetfulness. So we don't remember our past lives, right? And that's mercy. But one who's suffering, it is to be acknowledged that there has been some past activities for which one is suffering.
Prabhuji, I didn't ask that. I meant, like, for example, let's say when Janak Maharaj went to Yamloka, and then these people were suffering. So when their suffering ends, like they have burnt all their bad karma that way, and when they are going to born again, so like, does the pain of suffering uh, stays in the samskara so that they don't choose to do a bad karma again, or like this,
No,
like clean slate, so they can choose to do whatever
it's
they
not
want?
clean slate. See, okay, so depends on one's karma. If one has done karma that is born as a bird, right? Okay, so from bird to bigger bird to something to evolving into a crocodile, maybe to a monkey, to a cow, to a human, right? Let's say I'm just simplifying it. It's not like they remember that I did this in your past. Having said that, the tendency might still stay, because the tendency is different, the karma is different. Sometimes the tendency can follow through, especially if you're born from human life to human life. Tendencies do follow through, right? So somebody is born with the tendency of, let's say, playing the piano. Somebody is born with a kshatriya tendency, turns out he was a king in his past life. Somebody is born with a more scholarly tendency, maybe he or she was a scientist. So tendencies do carry forward in the subtle body. But when one has gone through so many lifetimes, my understanding is that it might not be so visible.
Yeah,
Having said that, all our past life, memories and impressions do play a role in who we are today. Do play a role.
Yeah, so my question was like, does tendencies change after, let's we been through the sufferings and we have burned our past bad
Depends.
karma?
Depends. If one regrets, if one wants to change it, depends. But when one comes to Krishna consciousness, the Krishna conscious process uproots those tendencies, right? Like, for example, a friend of mine, he said, Avelo, I like the smell of smoke. Although I don't smoke, I like to be around people who smoke. So the affinity towards smoking is there. I can't tolerate the smell of smoke. If I go to a hotel room and there has been some smell of smoke, I'll change the hotel or I'll change the room. I'll not be able to stay there. The tendency is very averse to that. I've never drank alcohol. I'm averse to alcohol, right? Coffee, tea, even before Krishna consciousness. So there are people who have tendencies that are more affinity towards these things, and there are people who have tendencies affinity away from these things. Krishna consciousness uproots all of those tendencies. But what stays or what doesn't stay depends on how we have worked on ourselves, how regretful we are, etc., etc. That's hard to kind of say on a general scale. It depends on the individual and the effort that they have put in.
So the tendency does carry forward through subtle body, and
Might or
then
might not. If the tendency has switched, it might not.
how can tendencies be switched? Prabhuji?
They can switch. If you, let's say somebody has overweight issues, then this person becomes a fitness freak, right? And the tendency switches. So they become fitness person because they don't want that trauma of being obese and having all this, things that are associated with that. People can switch.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji, for the answer.
It might be temporary switch. One might, like Ambani's son, I forget that guy who lost a lot of
Anand,
weight.
Anand Ambani.
I think he walked like 21 kilometers every day and lost weight, and was like, everybody's like, oh wow, what a transformation, and look at him now. He has gone back to being overweight. So that also happens. That might not happen also, right? So depends on the people, depends on their ability to control themselves. Okay. All right, next verse. Anybody wants to read? Okay. Trividham.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Trividham naraka seyadam dwaram nasanam atmanah kamaha krodhas tatha lobhas tasmad itat trayam tyajet. Translation: there are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sin lead to the degradation of the soul. You want me to read the purport, Prabhuji?
No, but read the translation again, this time correctly.
Okay, sorry, Prabhu. I think the screen. Yeah, okay. There are three gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul.
Thank you. So important to understand. So Krishna is saying that such people have no access to me, and he's warning us that how does one get to that level where they get access to no mercy of Krishna? They get to that level by three gates. There are three gates to hell: lust, anger, greed. What is lust according to Bhagavad Gita?
Strong desire.
What kind of desire?
Material desire, Rose.
Strong material desire for sense gratification. That is lust. What happens when that desire is unmet?
Anger, Rose.
Okay. So lust, anger, they're related. Prabhupada says at the beginning of demoniac life is described herein. One tries to satisfy his lust, and when he cannot, anger and greed arise. A sane man who does not want to glide down to the species of demoniac life must try to give up these three enemies, which can kill the self to such an extent that there will be no possibility of liberation from this material entanglement. So it's important to understand lust drags one down to anger and greed. And these are the three gateways to hell. They pull us down. Why am I not getting this and somebody else is? Right? So envy, hatred, all of that, these are all friends. They all come together. So one bad tendency, through lust, all the other things come in. And this is why we follow Ekadashi, we do sense control, we eat only prasadam. Why are we doing this? Because these are ways to train the senses. These are ways to train the mind so that we can have the ability to say no when the urges come, when Maya comes, right? The moment the urge from mode of ignorance, mode of passion comes, generally we are like, yes, Maya Devi, I'll follow where you take me. But when we learn to control ourselves, when we are used to saying no to the mind, one day of the year that is the hardest for me is Pandav Nirjala Ekadashi. Boy, oh boy, it's harder than Janmashtami. Janmashtami, at least midnight, you can break your fast. Pandav Nirjala Ekadashi, you start from the night before to next day till sunrise. Hard. But how many times throughout the day the mind is saying little bit of water, little food, little juice, little this, little that, and you're saying no, 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 right? So what is this doing? Training the mind. Oh God, this guy doesn't listen to me, right? Otherwise, the mind is used to us listening to it, and we figure out a way to satisfy the mind's desires and urges. But these kinds of obstacles create that opportunity to train the mind, saying, hey, mind, it will never be your way. It'll be my way. And I'm going to follow the scriptures and not you, right? So that is why we follow these rules and regulations, which other people see as like, my God, what a hard life. So what is happening is we are learning to control lust, which controls anger, which controls greed. the three gateways to hell. So austerities help us overcome these traps of Maya so that we can walk towards liberation. Okay, next verse. Anybody wants to read?
Prabhuji, I had a question.
Yes.
So what is the difference between lust and greed?
Lust is kama, which means I want to enjoy my senses. Greed is more on a relative scale. That person has it, I want it. Right? It is in connection with somebody else. Whereas lust is just my mind and senses want it and they want it now and I have to somehow satisfy it. Does it make sense? Anger, greed, envy, these are dependent on another living entity. I see somebody else enjoying, I get envious. I see somebody else having a wonderful toy, I get greedy. I want that toy. I see somebody else having a good life, I get angry. Oh, why is that person, that's undeserving person, getting all this? Right? So it's related to other people. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, so then what is the difference between envy and greed then? So it's very similar. isn't it?
Envy and
Envy and greed. Like it is related to other persons, right?
you tell me. What's the difference between envy and greed? Not like we're in the definition class, but still. What's the difference?
I mean, greed you explained, like when we see somebody else having something, we have the urge to have it. That's greed.
Mm-hmm.
And then envy, I feel, is like when you try to put somebody down to have it.
There's a strong poison in envy. There's a strong sense of negativity. I want that person to suffer. Why is that person enjoying? Right? Envy is more, greed is I want it. You have it, I want it. You're having pizza, I want to order pizza right now. Right? But envy is I hope your car crashes. I hope your wife leaves you. Right? That's envy. It's a little bit more, negative than greed. It is more destructive in nature. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Prabhuji. So basically, envy is greed on steroids.
No. Envy is greed plus the desire to hurt someone or desire to see someone else suffering. A
Negativity.
devotee can never tolerate anyone suffering.
Mhm.
Even if that is the worst enemy, a devotee's heart is so soft, like Arjun, right? He has been wronged from childhood. Poisoned, burnt Lakshagriha, wife disrobed, they have been dethroned, they have been put into all kinds of trouble. Still, he refuses to cause pain and suffering to those people who caused him pain and suffering. A devotee cannot tolerate the suffering of others. That is the nature of a devotee. But a demoniac person thrives on the pain of others. In certain so-called lifestyles, they cut the neck of a goat or a hen or a cow and bleed them to death, slow death. They enjoy it, right? There was a certain person in our Vedic system. What was his name? Mrigari the hunter. He used to half kill the animals and watch them suffer. He would enjoy their suffering. And Narad Muni says, why don't you kill them? At least there'll be less karma. But imagine the kind of karma you're accruing, this sadistic mentality, right? So when he became a devotee, he couldn't even step on an ant, right? He couldn't even step on an ant. He was so careful. So same person, demoniac nature enjoys suffering. Devotee nature, devotional nature, he can't even see a single ant suffering. So this is how we should kind of gauge ourselves, not judge ourselves, but gauge ourselves. Where do I lie in the devotee demon spectrum, right? Am I on the devotional side or am I on the demoniac side? Am I enjoying somebody else's suffering? Or does it my heart cry when I see somebody suffer? Very important, right? And we will see, what our heart says, and that will tell us a lot about who we are.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Sure. Okay. 1622. Aparna, would you kindly read?
Am I audible?
Yes.
Chapter 16, text 22. Iter vimukta kaunteya tamo dware stribhir nara acharitatmana shreyas tato yati param gatim. Translation. The man who has escaped these three gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thus gradually attains the supreme destination.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
So Krishna is stating the opposite now. So the three gates to hell, these are the traps of Maya. This is how you get to those abominable species of life where access to Krishna is practically impossible. And those who are able to escape these three gates to hell can easily perform acts that are conducive to self-realization, thus gradually attains the supreme destination, back home, back to Godhead. By following the regulative principles of human life, one gradually raises himself to the platform of spiritual realization. If one is so fortunate by such practice is to rise to the platform of Krishna consciousness, then success is guaranteed for him. Congratulations. Success is guaranteed for all of you. If one is so fortunate by such practice to rise to the platform of Krishna consciousness, then success is guaranteed for him. In the Vedic literature, the ways of action and reaction are prescribed to enable one to come to the stage of purification. The whole method is based on giving up lust, greed, and anger. By cultivating knowledge of this process, one can be elevated to the highest position of self-realization. Now imagine, for all these lifetimes, nobody told us lust, greed, and anger are the doors to hell. So we were going hither and thither. We were, and falling prey to Maya and keep on sliding into all these traps. Finally, in this lifetime, we are reading the Bhagavad Gita, and Krishna says, caution, caution. These are the three gates to hell. Avoid them at any cost, right? Like sometimes you must have seen those movies where they go for treasure hunting, right? You go through this door and there are snakes and trap door. You go through this door, you get a treasure. So Krishna is literally giving us a treasure map, right? Avoid these three gates and you'll be able to have a life conducive to self-realization. But it's not easy, right? We are used to it. Therefore, according to Vedic system, there are instituted the four orders of life and the four statuses of life, called the caste system and the spiritual order system. There are different rules and regulations for different castes or divisions of society. And if a person is able to follow them, he will be automatically raised to the highest platform of spiritual realization. So in the grihastha, so there's brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. So only in the grihastha order of life, one is procreating for bearing children, one is working for earning money, one is living in a little bit of a luxury, which is from the age of 25 to the age of 50. But if you see brahmachari, austere life, vanaprastha, austere life, sannyas, austere life, right? So we start with brahmacharya, so we know that this is the life to lead. But to procreate, to maintain a wife and children, to maintain family, one has to work, one has to do the needful. 25 years of that, one is ready, one lets the children have grown up, the wife can be taken care of by the children, and then one goes into vanaprastha lifestyle, and then sannyas, and then they're ready. So they start controlling Of course, in Krishna consciousness, even in Grihastha Dharma, we are controlling our senses. We're not waiting till the age of 50. We continue throughout our lifetime to control our senses because we don't know if we will reach the age of 50. We don't know when death will come. So might as well always be prepared to avoid the three trapdoors of lust, greed, and anger. Okay, any questions?
Guruji, can you tell about the Vanaprastha ashram?
What do you want to know?
I mean, like, after Vanaprastha, people go for sannyas. So what do people do in Vanaprastha ashram?
So in the Vanaprastha ashram, you're still allowed to be with your wife. In sannyas, there is no wife. You're on your own. So Vanaprastha, you're still allowed to, stay away from home, but receive some of the, Vanaprastha means you've gone to the forest. So you're living in austerity, but there is some assistance, you can still maintain your wife, but you're away from the whole hustle bustle of taking care of children, properties, litigation, business, all of this that keeps us busy in our grihastha life. So you're away from all this. You and your wife together are performing rites and rituals and meditation and spiritual practices and studying the scriptures and all of that, preparing for death. And then comes the ultimate stage where you're come to that level of renunciation where you don't even stay with your wife. You're on your own, no more access to any kind of association with the opposite sex. And you maintain extreme austerity, you beg, and you live a very, very austere life, and then you go back to Godhead. That's the process. But given in Kali Yuga, one doesn't have to take sannyas. Not everybody is qualified for sannyas. So one can aspire for Vanaprastha life and live, at the Vanaprastha stage. I had asked my spiritual master that, maybe one day I'll take sannyas, and he's like, it's okay. You can be a Vanaprastha. That's also fine. Because he realized I'm not the austere type. Anyway. So yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yes, Prabhu. So another question. So when somebody goes for sannyas and the husband and wife separate, so husband goes to the forest to become a sannyasi. What happens to wife?
Wife is taken care of by the children, by either the son or if there's no son, then maybe the son-in-law. But again, the husband cannot go for sannyas unless the wife has someone being taken care of. You can't be a irresponsible sannyasi. Sometimes, some rare instances where you're a great personality is for a higher cause. That's different. Like Lord Chaitanya left his wife and mother to become a sannyasi. That was to establish the yoga dharma. As a grihastha, people were not listening to him, but as a sannyasi, they were able to, give him the respect because he was very young and good looking and handsome. So people were like, oh, he's a young person. Why is he talking such high-fi philosophy? But the moment he took sannyas, everybody was falling at his feet and was able to accept. So for a higher purpose, he had to leave his wife and mother, with, of course, he had people taking care of his wife and mother. He sent people from Puri, like, go take care of Mother Sachi and make sure she's okay and whatnot. But yeah, those are errands. Generally speaking, before taking sannyas, one must be responsible and make sure all their responsibilities are taken care of.
Okay, so it's a gradual process.
Of course, everything is a gradual process.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, how to control our greedy mentality?
Wow, that's such a broad question. Repurpose your greed towards things that are Krishna conscious. So there's a positive word for greed called laulyam. That means greed for service, greed for prasadam, greed for things that are related to Krishna consciousness. So when you have such greed, that overrides material greed.
If I'll have greed for Krishna consciousness things, then only these greed for material, means for sense gratification or for material will decrease, right?
It's for all of them, for greed, for lust. So lust, you overcome lust by your love for Krishna. Like the gopis, they found Krishna very attractive. They had lust in their hearts, but by associating with Krishna, that lust was transformed to pure love. Right? So anger, we have anger towards, whatever, for whatever. Anger comes from lust, anger comes from envy. Why is the other person enjoying? But then you repose that anger towards atheistic people, towards demoniac people who are Mayavadis, right? You can repurpose that anger like Hanumanji did, burnt up the entire Lanka. He repurposes anger for demoniac personalities. So like that, you can repurpose these negative qualities into positive qualities. So greed can be overcome by greed for Krishna conscious things, prasadam, services, etc.
Okay, Prabhuji. Means constantly transformation.
No, just be in the process. You don't have to take like, okay, I'll take greed. Now I'll fix greed. Or then envy. And I'll fix envy. It's not like that. When you are in service, when you do seva, you're given a project. What happens is in that service itself, you get purified, right? You will be, let's say you're serving with somebody else, some other devotees. You'll be constantly looking, this devotee is doing better. Oh, this devotee is getting appreciated. The envy is working. And then Krishna will work on your envy. And it will be eventually, overcome. You'll be like, no, this devotee is serving Krishna. I want to serve Krishna. We both want to please Krishna. So why am I being envious of the other person? Let me help the other person, right? So that this person gets to serve Krishna even better. Let more glory go to the. So it transforms. So the point is not to take one negative quality at a time and work on it. The point is to be in service. And as you're in service, Krishna's association, the holy name, the prasadam, the service, by associating with Krishna, you will get rubbed off like an iron nail gets rubbed off by a magnet, and it gets magnetized. It becomes a magnet. So we get Krishnized and we get Krishna's qualities, right? So don't try to just overcome, oh, greed, go away. Develop Krishna conscious tendencies, do projects, do services, and slowly, slowly you will see your material qualities get transformed to spiritual qualities. You don't have to make extra effort.
Okay, Prabhuji. Understood. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. No questions. Moving on to the next verse. Somebody wants to read 1623? Okay. Ya Shastra Vidhim Utsrijya Vartate Kama Kartaha Nasa Siddhim Avapnoti Nasukham Na Param Gatim. He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. So that means we need to learn the scriptures. If we don't know the scriptures and we act whimsically, like let's say you go to a country where people drive on the right side of the road, not the left side of the road. Now you act whimsically, the cops will come and give you a ticket and you'll have to pay the penalty. You might even go to jail in some countries. So it is important that before you go drive in that country, you acquire a license. And to acquire the license, you have to know the rules of the road. You have to give a test. And then you're given the license and then you can drive, knowing the rules of the road. Okay? So, but if you say, I didn't know, sorry, you're supposed to know. So you're supposed to know the scriptural injunctions and follow them, or else heavy karma awaits you, right? So there is karma, akarma, and vikarma. When you're acting within the scriptural injunctions, it is karma. When you're acting outside scriptural injunctions, it's vikarma. And when you're acting in transcendence, in Krishna conscious activities, it's akarma, which that doesn't have good or bad karma. It is just, takes you back to God. So it is important that we understand these differences. So Krishna is saying one has to follow the scriptural injunctions. He who discards scriptural injunctions and acts according to his own whims attains neither perfection nor happiness nor the supreme destination. Dhobi ka kutta na ghar ka na ghat ka. That's the situation, right? People make up their own religion. They'll say, I have met many people who are like, oh, I don't believe in the scriptures at all. I make my own religion. Religion is a very personal thing. Oh, I make my own rules. Oh, I believe in this. And I think God will understand it. Sorry to say, scriptures are God's own words. And God in those scriptures is saying, follow the scriptures. So standards are made. The rules are made. And this is what we follow, right? So it is important that we give up this whimsical mentality, the mentality of I do what I want to do, right? And that is my religion. No, you cannot manufacture religion. You have to follow the standards set by Krishna. Dharmantu sakshat bhagavat pranita. Dharmantu sakshat bhagavat pranita. Dharma is given by God himself. So, and that dharma is in the scriptural form, compiled by Vyasadeva. And after burning all the scriptures, whatever is remaining, thankfully we have Bhagavatam, we have Bhagavad Gita, we have Ishopanishad, we have, a few scriptures. That's enough for us to go back home, back to God. Okay. And we need to follow them as much as we can. Krishna sees that we are trying. That trying part is important. Don't get lax. Don't get lazy. Don't get like, it's okay. In a lot of ways, it is okay. Krishna is kind. But we should not take advantage of Krishna's kindness. Then he will teach us a little lesson so that we can be more serious. The word kama karta is very significant. A person who knowingly violates the rules acts in lust. So you know the rules. Initially, we didn't know the rules. We are called mudhas, those who don't know the scriptures. After knowing the scriptures, when we break the rules, when we break the regulative principles, then it is considered we are acting in lust. The only reason we will not follow the scriptures is because we are overcome by lust. Right? He knows that this is forbidden, but he still acts. This is called acting whimsically. He knows that this should be done, but still he doesn't do it. Therefore, he is called whimsical. Such a person are destined to be condemned by the Supreme Lord. Such persons cannot have the perfection which is meant for human life. The human life is especially meant for purifying one's existence, and one who does not follow the rules and regulations cannot purify himself, nor can he attain the real stage of happiness. Now, one can say the scriptures have crazy amount of rules and regulations. Oh my God, if we have to follow all of them, what would we do? And that is where acharyas come in. Remember the GSS model, Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. So the Guru, according to time, place, and circumstance, defines these are the rules to follow. In Kali Yuga, given the modern lifestyle we have, we cannot follow all the scriptural injunctions given. So an empowered acharya, empowered by Krishna, comes and says, in this life, in this part of Kali Yuga, this is enough. You follow the 4 regulative principles, you chant 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, I guarantee you will go back home, back to Godhead. And because an acharya has spoken, Krishna makes it come true. Right? Because that's their role. They play that role that, okay, people have to work, they have to maintain family, they have to do all of this, they don't have time, let's make it simple. But at least those should be followed. So when we get initiated, that's the promise we make. That whatever little bit of rules are there, we will follow that. Okay. Doesn't answer everybody's question? Okay, there's Hare Krishna. I forgot to wish you. Oh, no worries. Okay. All right. Any questions on this? Moving on to the next verse. 1624. Somebody wants to read it?
Hare Krishna, may I?
Please.
Chapter 16, text 24. Tasmaschastram pramanam te karya karya vyavasthitam Jnatva shastra vidhanoktam karma kartum iharhasi. Translation. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. Knowing such rules and regulations, one should act so that they may gradually be elevated.
Next verse. Oh, this is done. This is chapter, end of chapter 16. Okay, thank you. One should therefore understand what is duty and what is not duty by the regulations of the scriptures. So, as I have defined before, duty is something that is prescribed by somebody in authority. That's not prescribed by ourselves to ourselves. It is just prescribed by somebody of authority according to scriptures for the benefit of all beings, right? So, how do we know what is our duty? Scriptures, Guru Sadhu Shastra. So scriptures say so. Guru assigns those duties, right? And we see the example of sadhus in those scriptures, how they have performed those duties so beautifully. And we say, this is how you do it, right? We see Dharmaraj Yudhishthir. We see Bhishma Dev. They have made a promise. They hold on to that promise. They, Krishna, for example, he went to protect or save those princesses from, what was that asura? I forget that asura's name. And then he, the princess said, Krishna, you have touched our hand. Now, if you don't marry us, no one will. And Krishna says, fine, I'll marry all 16,000 of them. All the 16,000 princesses got married to Krishna because he took responsibility for them. So like that, you see in the sadhu nature of, we know how to take care of our duties, because rationalization is a very wonderful weapon of Maya. We can rationalize practically anything. It's okay, Krishna understands. It's okay, it's just a white lie. It's okay, something. So we can rationalize practically anything. But when we see the great personalities, their examples, when we learn the scriptures, Narakasura, thank you, Avan. When we see the great personalities, we are able to understand, they were able to hold their standards even in the face of the greatest difficulties. I should do. Just because I'm faced with difficulty, I shouldn't lie. I shouldn't cheat. I shouldn't exploit. It is important I follow my disciplic succession. I follow the great personalities given in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? They are my role models. That is why it's important to have role models from spiritual background, not movie stars, cricketers, right? We should have role models who show us, wow, even in the face of great difficulty, how did they react? When Draupadi's sari was being, disrobed, what did she do? She called out Govinda. It reminds us, I'm in this situation. Let me call out to Krishna's holy name, right? When the gopas and the gopis, in Vrindavan, the cows, the calves, when Indra started, sending thunderstorms that are meant to destroy the universe, that kind of thunderstorm, the first thought was, Krishna, help. They were not like, how can we blame Krishna for telling us not to worship Indra? They were not thinking like that. Anybody would be like, Krishna told us to not worship Indra, and look, we are suffering now. They were like, Krishna, help. Krishna's like, okay, Govardhan Hill. Let's come under Govardhan Hill. Let's have picnic under Govardhan Hill, right? Let's have fun for 7 days. That's what. Krishna can take a bad situation and turn it around completely when you involve him. But generally, what do? My intelligence, my this, my that, whatnot. So it's important that we depend on Krishna. We see these great examples of great acharyas, great sadhus, great examples in the scriptures. And by seeing their life, we are able to apply that in our life. And we can hold strong to the scriptural injunctions and stay away from the 3 gates of hellish planets, right? and thereby go back home or progress towards going back home, back to Godhead. So understand what is your duty, understand what is not your duty, right? And follow the regulative principles given by the scriptures. And knowing the rules and regulations, we can act in a way that is conducive to our gradual elevation, to our gradual evolution in the Krishna consciousness process. We have 2 minutes left. Any questions? There are no questions. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Oh, is demigod worship good or bad? Demigod worship is not recommended by Krishna 3 times. He says those whose intelligence is overcome by lust, such people worship demigods. Kame srestha rita jnana bhajate anna devata. Krishna said worship only me exclusively. Krishna likes exclusive devotion. Ananyas chintayanto mam. Don't think of anyone else. Think of me alone. Ananyas chintayanto mam. So Krishna is constantly saying, think of me, worship me. Manmana bhavamad bhakto matyaji mam namaskuru. Offer your tapasya to me, offer your worship to me, offer everything to me. Krishna is very exclusive that way. He does not like to share us with anyone else, right? So it's important that now that we are 16th chapter, chapter 3 I would have said differently, but the 16th chapter we should know demigod worship is not recommended by Krishna at all. At all. All right. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Hare Krishna and have a wonderful
Hare Krishna.
See you next
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.